But yeah, by community vote today, we'll do the Fresh Crack Remy Martin VSOP Fine Champagne Cognac. And this is, of course, a Remy Cointreau product, 40% ABV, 80 proof. And this word here, fine champagne, this fine champagne cognac, does actually mean that at least 50% of the grapes, all the grapes come from the Champagne region. And 50% of the grapes have to come from the Grand Champagne region, and the rest can come from the Petit Champagne. Um, See if I have the image. Sometimes I have, yeah, I might actually have the image. Every once in a while, I have little supplements that we can use for our understanding. So this word, fine champagne, does actually mean something um, when it comes to the grapes used here. Um, let's see. Boom. Boom. Is this gonna be all blurry? No, there it is. Look, there it is. All right, so there's the cognac, the cognac region there. So all of the grapes in a bottle that has fine champagne on it. At least 50% of them have to come from Garage champagne, that orange color. Whereas the rest of them can come from Petit champagne, which is like that kind of beige color. Um, Now, my understanding is Courvoisier. They used to be able to put champagne cognac on this. I think this is the brand where it like used to be. They could say, but now they can't because now they use some grapes that come from the Fimbois. Um, and I don't know about Martell at all. I don't think there's anything on that. Um, but yeah, so that is the gist of why we're allowed to put fine champagne cognac on here, because this is in fact entirely a product of the Champagne region. It's not because it has necessarily anything to do with champagne, like the sparkling wine. So we'll give this a rip here and see how we get along with it. I haven't done too many cognacs, so I'm still learning somewhat about all the flavors we can expect. But obviously, there's like wine elements. At the end of the day, it's distilled wine. There's probably some boisé in there. There's probably um, some amount of coloring in there. Um, so at VSOP, it has to be a minimum 4 years in the barrel. I was thinking of the sparkling wine champagne. Yeah, so Champagne is a region, and of course, Champagne, the sparkling wine, can only be called Champagne if it comes from Champagne. Otherwise, it has to be called sparkling wine. Um, but yeah, when I read Champagne on here, that's just has to do with the grapes used here have to come from Champagne. And at least 50% of them have to come from Grand Champagne. More than 50% could, but all of them come from Champagne, and at least half of them have to come from Grand Champagne. The rest can come from Petit Champagne. Um, but there's no grapes from the Fambois in this particular bottle, but there is in this one here. I think it even says this one says Fambois, Bordeaux, Petit, and Grand Champagne. So there's all four of the regions are in the Courvoisier. And the other thing about Courvoisier, I think, is like um, is this brand is more of a cognac maker. It's not like a distiller. Like I don't think they actually distill their own product. They kind of like control the means of production, but they don't actually own the distilleries that distill the product. They like buy liquid. So that's why I like this one's a little different. They kind of like source the liquid, and the grapes can come from anywhere in there. That being said, I don't know for sure about this one, about Martell. Let's see what it says on the back here. If it gives me any other information. Yeah, I couldn't really find out exactly the deal is with this one. If anything, there's a certain mark of quality with the Remy Martin stuff, with it being exclusive to the Champagne region. Yet it's still somehow cheaper than Hennessy, at least where I am. That being said, like Hennessy and Martell, I think were like somewhat related for a long period of time. They had like, what was it? Have I written here? There was like in the like 1800s, their families married and were intermingled or something like that, and they had some kind of like soft alliance. They weren't the same company, but I think Martell and Hennessy were like linked for like a couple hundred years or something like that. So there's our color here, which may include some amount of color. And we'll compare it to like these other ones here in a minute, but to me this is actually hitting kind of like cough syrup orange, if that makes any sense. It's like copper to me. It's not like a dark, like a brown. It's more of a color, copper, or closer to an orange in color. It has a certain vibrancy that is really kind of hitting like orange copper, copper orange. Immediately very strong on the like grapey notes, on the like the wine kind of characteristic. Like strong, a red grape character. And it's like pretty sweet too, so it's like, but not like it's almost like a mix of like maybe like what you'd consider like that purple grape kind of flavor and like a red grape kind of flavor. But pretty sweet though, pretty like candy for those flavors. You get a little bit of citrus at the top, but I'm not getting a whole lot else right off the beginning here. And again, I know from the few cognacs that I've tried that sometimes you kind of get a rich, kind of like molasses, dark toffee, these kind of other sweeter, sort of thick syrupy kind of sweetnesses. Sometimes you get some wood character in there. But none of these are like extremely old. Again, these are minimum 4 years age. I think Courvoisier says that their liquid is like older than that, like it's 8 to 12 years, but it's clearly not old enough that the liquid in that bottle could be called XO. So there could be younger stuff in here, but probably it's all like, if I had to guess, probably all these are like averaging 6 years, but it's still a 4 year age statement because the next cognac age statement is 10 years old. Not a whole lot else I'm getting out of this though, at least not initially. All right, so Remy Martin, VSOP, fine champagne cognac on the palate. Cheers. Man, it's really, this one, for me, it's really on the dried fruit. It's really on that, like, raisin and dates realm. A little bit of spiciness on the finish. It was like sweet candied raisins and dates. Finish is like, again, some spice in there. A little bit oaky. Not terribly long. To me, it's like super duper like sherry casky almost, like coming from like a whiskey realm. It's like you get those like really dried fruit kind of notes. Definitely some more citrus, some more like orange citrus on the nose now. Um, Now to me, like the Courvoisier was always more like um, kind of more sweet and molassesy, whereas the Remy is hitting more like candied dried fruits, candied dates sort of idea. Um, and again, this one is same age statement. They say 8 to 12 years, but it's a 4-year age statement, so take with that what you will. Um, Everything else is very similar here. Of course, this is not fine champagne. This one contains grapes from pretty much all of the regions. Um, and there's Napoleon on the bottle. This cork doesn't want to come out. Oh yeah, see, this is way more, huh. I'm gonna see how these progress, but just even the aroma on here, like this is way more in that like butterscotch molasses world. Um, like way more syrupy. Like this smells like butterscotch to me. And this smells like orange citrus with like again some of that like dried fruit. Like the Remy to me is like way more like reminds me of a sherry bombed whiskey. Is like way more in that direction. And the Courvoisier is definitely like way more in that like, oh yeah, like vanilla and butterscotch um sweetness, like way more sweet. Like so much more on the sweetness. I forget the rules. Are you allowed added sugar in this? Yes. So the maximum is 4% by volume of additives, caramel coloring, boisé, and sugar. So I wouldn't be surprised, just right off speculation, that this one is way more sweetened. Like the Remy feels like it's more on the natural aromas of the ingredients, and like the Courvoisier smells so much sweeter, so much more candy. Um, like they probably both have some amount of dosage, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Courvoisier is way more dosed. Which I don't know if that's a term that they use in cognac. It's a rum term, dosage. But this is so sweet. Okay, let's remind ourselves of the Remy. Yeah, again, so much more on like the candied, raisin dates, slight citrus, rind. Finish has got a little bit of spice to it, a little oaky. MSRP. So in my realm, these are all like roughly the same price. And that price is like somewhere around between like 80 and 100 Canadian dollars. So it kind of depends on where you buy it and if it's on deal or not, but it's all around that kind of like 80, 100 Canadian dollars price point. I think these are all around the same. I think this one is a little bit cheaper than the rest. And I think like if we compared like the big houses, I think Hennessy's the most expensive out of all of them. Like the Remy and the Martell are kind of like in the middle. This one's kind of the Courvoisier is kind of like on the cheap end, and the Henny I think is on the expensive end. But they're like all kind of around the same price. Like they're not like it's not so much more cheaper that like so much more cheaperish, cheaper that like it really changes your decision. I wouldn't think. Um, and again, like the next leap up. So like if you want to go to EXO, the EXOs are all around like 300 Canadian dollars. Like, I think like the Hennessy is like 350. But if you get them on sale, you can probably kind of get them all around 200 Canadian dollars if you just wait for them to go on deal. 200 is like, so basically like the EXOs are roughly twice the price, I guess, of the VSOPs. And of course, there's like even higher editions after that, but cognacs and brandy's the same? No. So cognac is a brandy. A cognac has got way more rules associated with it than brandy does. So, for example, cognac is those grapes have to come from the cognac region. Also, when you make cognac, you have to actually use grapes, whereas with brandy, you're allowed to use grape juice. You can use juice. Also, the other thing to be clear about when we're talking about cognac and brandy is that cognac is very specifically like a product of grapes, whereas brandy, in theory, can be made from any fruit. So you can have apple brandy, or you can have brandy of any kind, pear brandy, etc. But again, those can be fermented from juice. They don't necessarily have to be the whole fruit, whereas it's different with cognac. Of course, cognac has certain rules about how it has to be aged in Limousin oak, and brandy, you can do basically whatever you want with it. So it's kind of like cognac is a brandy, but it's more restrictive. So it's kind of like how bourbon is a whiskey, but it's more restrictive. It's a kind of the same sort of relationship. Cognac is to bourbon as brandy is to whiskey, if that makes any sense. All right, so we're going to try the Courvoisier and see um, how we like the palate by comparison. Yeah, the Courvoisier for me, it's like it's way more molasses, dark toffee. Um, there's a little bit of that dried fruit in there, but more oaky. Um, and the finish, again, I think more oaky, more on the like, again, molasses character. Not a little bit of spice, but not as much. So I think overall, like if we compare these two, at least the two that we have poured right now, Remy kind of feels like it's more on the like, um, dried fruit, orange, citrus notes, like sweet dried fruit characteristics, and the Courvoisier is more on the sweetness, more on the molasses, more on the butterscotch, vanilla. Got like a little bit more oak to it, similar kind of spice, I'd say. So much sweeter bottle, more fruity, I guess we'll say. So that leaves like one more here. Bop is the Martell one, which again this is also not open, but I've been putting this in the like fresh crack pool for like 3 or 4 months, and we haven't fresh cracked it yet. So we'll just get that out of the way. So same age statement, this one, but different big cognac house, Martell in particular. Again, this one's Pinot Ricard. So again, Pinot Ricard. This is Campari, and this is Remy Cointreau. And of course, the other one left is Hennessy, which is LVMH. And yeah, this one, 40% alcohol still. They say this is roughly 4 to 7 years, but I mean, just 4-year age statement, cognac. I can't really find anything about the origin of the fruit in this one, so I'm going to assume it's probably like the same as the Courvoisier. They just kind of like take stuff from whatever. Whereas again, Remy is kind of the only one that's got exclusively champagne grapes in it. So that might have something to do with the flavor profile too, right? Like again, that Remy is more on the fruity characteristics, and I wonder if it's just a higher quality of the ingredients used provide that much more of a dry fruit candy, dried fruit characteristic, and as a result, maybe they add less sugar or etc. Because they can kind of let those higher quality stand on their own merit, but this is just pure guesswork. Nice. That was fucking nice. And of course, Martell has a couple other products that are kind of like similar. They have like the Cordon Bleu, and they have like one that's called the Swift. I don't know the difference between the VSOP, the XO, and Martell's other like similar sort of offerings. I don't. The Swift is a little bit cheaper, and the Cordon Bleu is like not quite as expensive as their XO. So I don't really know how this all kind of where they kind of stand really. But I know a lot of people say that the Cordon Bleu is their favorite cognac below XO. A lot of people say it drinks like an XO without the XO price tag. I don't know how true that is, but all right. So we want to just look at coloration here. So here is on your right is Remy, and on your left is Courvoisier, which to me the Remy is a little bit lighter in color. And then again, Remy on your right, Martell on your left. I think this one's clear that the Martell is deeper in color. It's like not even close. So I think of the three, the Remy has a lighter color. And here is on your right, Courvoisier and Martell, which I think Martell is still very much the darker one. I know it's kind of like my hand is behind this one, so it kind of makes it look like a little, maybe a little lighter, but in person, it's still pretty clear that the Martell is the deepest in color. Now, color can be added to these, so whatever that means, I don't know, but just for assessment of what we're getting here. Bro, it's cool. That's right, it's so cool. It's so cool. All right, we'll see if this has a clear difference in style. Again, we got like more sweet and like more dried fruit citrus, and we'll see kind of how this matches up with those other two. This is kind of like not in the picture. Here it is. This one is not nosing great for me. What are you drinking on? Well, we have Remy, we got Courvoisier, and we have Martell. These are all VSOP cognacs, VSOP cognacs. So that's minimum 4 years aged. I don't know if this one is just needs some more time or what, but this one seems to suck. That one doesn't hit very well at all. All the syrup and sweetness. And this one again is like kind of more in that dried fruit orange realm. And then this thing, it's like kind of spicy. It's like kind of like gingerbread. There's a little bit of fruitiness to this one, but it's not as loud as the Remy. It's kind of like more spicier. All right, so let's remind ourselves about this one here real quick. So again, this one is more candied, dried fruit, sweet dates, that sort of idea. And on the palate, yeah, so like again, more sweet, kind of like candied dates, raisins, some spiciness on the finish, woody on the finish. Not nearly as sweet as the Courvoisier. This one's probably like all the sugars. Again, the nose to me is like so butterscotch vanilla. Like maple syrup kind of world. Slight like dusty wood note. Palate for me is not as expressive as the Remy, but what you do get kind of more of that like sweet molasses kind of note. Some spiciness and woodiness in the finish. More woody than the Remy. More sweet than the Remy. Less on the dried fruit. Less expressive on the palate. Maybe a better finish though. More like wood and sweetness and spice on the finish. Kind of maybe like a better finish than the Remy, but the palate feels like it's worse. And it definitely leans way sweeter. Way more in like the syrupy kind of direction. And then we'll try this Martell, which is the darkest coloration, but it doesn't really mean much. The outset of the nose again just feels more spicy, but there's also like a light kind of grapey note to it too. Almost like a grapefruit roll-up, kind of like sweet grapey note that kind of like rises above a little bit of spiciness. All right, here's the Martell. See how that hits. This one kind of drinks a little similar to the Courvoisier. It's like more sweet, but it's not as dark on the sweetness. It's like the sweetness is higher up. It's like lighter sweetness. Kind of more in that like closer to that like table syrup realm and like less on that like molasses realm. But it's still got a little bit of that kind of like dark sweetness on the finish too. Not as oaky. Probably if we talked about wood, just my initial impression, most woody, second most woody, least woody. Um, Probably like sweetest, second sweetest, driest. And then like this is the more on the like fruity components, but this one has kind of like a different, lighter, brighter fruit to it. This one has the quietest fruit, and I know for one time we did a blind sample of this Courvoisier bottle, and I actually it's almost like a meme at this point, but I kind of thought this was rum because like it drank so like sweet and molasses and not on the like I couldn't really detect that kind of like winey kind of grapey like fruit note that would like identify it as cognac. um and the fruit components are definitely like least present, I think, on this bottle. Like it's obvious it's way more on the sweet and oak. I want to see if I can kind of get a better assessment of this Martell one. Because it's kind of like a little, it separates itself from the other two, but it's not so like clearly defined as like, oh, this is like the dried fruity one and this is like the syrupy one. It's kind of like got a bit of a couple things going on. Hey, Luca, how's it going? Yeah, see, kind of like has like a lighter, kind of sweet grape note, like again, like a candied note, like a fruit roll up kind of grape note, like a like that purple fruit roll up kind of thing. Probably between these, like, um, the Remy feels like it's more, what's the word you would use? Like more like authentic, if that makes any sense. It feels like it has more of the like notes that you might assume come from cognac. And it's like less like on the like random sweet candied elements that are seemingly in this one. I don't know if I've ever buy cognac. Yeah, to me it's just like it's another vector to have an interesting flavor experience for me. Um, there's definitely like a certain range of flavors in cognac though, kind of like some similar to like there's a certain range of flavors you get from bourbon. Um, there's like it feels like there is like kind of a little bit of a space that you kind of have to fight in to try to like make your product right, like you can't like none of these are like wildly different, like you can get wildly different whiskeys, right? Kind of feels like their notes are all in this kind of like little area where they got, oh, there's wood notes and there's sweet notes and there's like winey notes and grapey notes, dried fruit and citrus. Like they're all kind of in this kind of little space. It was watery with some burn and then some sweet. Yeah, so that's the thing is, especially even Louis 13, these are all served at 40% alcohol. I would like it if, again, we got to do these, we got to hit these major brands, but there are smaller houses that will provide higher proof products, and I'm kind of like interested to see what some of these spirits look like when they're turned up a little bit. Like, let's amp the dial some. Um, now that being said, with Louis 13, I think the cognacs that are used in the blend for Louis 13 can be between 65 and 100 years old. So a lot of those could be like not that watered down in theory. Like, again, you have some angel share going on. That being said, I know that sometimes like they'll like take stuff out of the barrel and like isolate it so that it doesn't, like there's no angel share that happens, it doesn't age, like they stop the aging process and then kind of like kind of store it before it gets bottled. So I don't know if like the stuff in Louis is like some amount of it is stuff like that, but um, ultimately you would like to think an older cognac like Louis wouldn't be very watery. It would be closer to like, what you would get straight. But it is probably still 40% alcohol, I think, right? So um, I'm definitely like interested in like some smaller houses that have like less watered down offerings. Um, that way we can kind of get like a larger, more intense expression. Um, but for me, like these are the products that are easily available for everybody to get. A lot of the brands that are like a lot of the houses that are like smaller producers are like kind of harder to get. Um, like some of the ones on the list that I was given of like good cognac small houses to try. They just don't even exist in my market. I don't know. You might have to go to France to get them. I'm not sure, but I've definitely seen plenty of people tasting cognacs that are of much higher proof than you can get from like these brands, for example. And that's one thing too, like for you, if you're used to like maybe bourbons that are like 46 to 50% alcohol and you go to like a cognac that's 40% alcohol, you're like, well, feels a little bit on the watery side, you might get that impression. Oh man, it's like as soon as I take this glass from the Courvoisier, it's like syrup. It's like there was syrup in here. It's like Ben did a shot of maple syrup in the glass before we poured the cognac in it. That's what it smells like. And the Remy is kind of like the only one that I think has like a really good strong citrus note. Dang, Ben skewed the results. The Martell's interesting. It has the most, I think, the most disappointing nose, though. It's kind of really hard to get something off of here. Yeah, between the three, if I was to give my like gut shot opinion of these three, my favorite is probably the Remy, and my least favorite is probably the Martell. Only because it's like, I feel like the flavor is just not very intense. It's a little bit different, but maybe it needs some time, but it is not like hitting nearly as well as the other two. And this Courvoisier, like if you want to just drink like something sweet alcohol, you can't. You can't. You can't. This one tastes really good. You can't complain about the flavor profile of this one. But it's kind of like it feels like so sweet. It's almost like not that interesting. You know. It's like the only dimension is that it's so sweet. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like Woodford Double Oaked. It's kind of like if you want to just have a nice, sweet, smooth pancakes and syrup, like not aggressive but so tasty alcohol beverage, like Woodford Dio or this thing, you're in like the same kind of realm. Whereas like I think like you get like more of a variety of a flavor experience from this Remy. It feels like it's more like there's more to it, you know. There's more oomph to it. But it's not as like sweet thing that you can sip and forget and not think about it. It's like if you want to think about it, the Remy's more like in the think about it department, and then the Courvoisier is more in the like I want to drink alcoholic syrup, and then this thing, I don't know. Hopefully, like maybe a month. Give this thing a month. Give this thing a month, maybe. We'll see if it gets better. But to me, it's like there is like a bright, grapey, sweet note to this, but it's not hitting for me. The nose is very faint. Team Remy, yeah. No, I've never had Henny though, so Henny's next, right? We got to add Henny to the mix here, and then we'll see how we feel. But to me, I think it's clear that the Remy's the best product to me out of the three. Now, I don't know if like again, Martell has those other kind of like side bottles, like the Swift and the Cordon Bleu. Like I don't know if like they're like putting juice into that. That's like maybe if it was in here, it would make this a better product. I don't know, but um, this one is just not. This one's not my favorite. Cordon Bleu is solid. The Swift is weird though. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say great things about Cordon Bleu. I almost ended up with a Swift. There was Swift that was 50% off, and it sold out in like 1 second before I could check out. So I didn't end up with a Swift as well as this, but the Swift is like, it's weird. It's like in that kind of realm where it's like it's not quite the same price as this bottle, but it's very similar price, but it doesn't have VSOP age statement. So I don't know like where that lands. Not bad, just kind of whiskey like. Huh, interesting. We probably will try it eventually. Some of the like Martell offerings kind of like remind me of like Talisker, where they have like there's like Talisker 10, and then there's Talisker Storm, and then there's Talisker Sky, where they're like all around the same price, and you're like, well, which one is? They all seem like they're bourbon barrel Taliskers around the same price. Like, what? Why do we have three products? So that's kind of what it feels like a little bit. It's like, why do we have this, and then we have the Swift, and then we have the EXO, but we also have the Cordon Bleu. It's like it's kind of like a mix of stuff, and I'm not really sure where they all like land in comparison to each other. You know. Pretty good, not bad. Of the cognacs I've had, so actually, you know what? We can try the other one too. I don't want to say that this is necessarily the favorite that I've had because I have one more. So we'll look at that one.